This video is going to show how to etch text like this with 2D tool compensation. For the most part, etching is done just on the tool center line because you're using a small chamfer tool, but occasionally the tool doesn't go down to an exact point, so you have to do a small amount of 2D offsetting. Or maybe you're using a really small diameter end mill. In that case, you do have to you have to offset by the radius of the tool in order to get the right shape. So let's go ahead and just add the etch instruction, and then we click on the etches to chain, and now we have this this area down here that says the default tool compensation side. So when you select an edge on a 3D model, it can usually detect which side it has to offset on, if it's the left or the right side, or in or out, I should say. But in 2D, it can't do that because there's no surrounding information for it to determine the tool compensation side. So it uses this for all 2D selections. So we're going to go ahead and just do left compensation, so in. So we're going to go on the inside. But if we are going to use a point and we do not want it to offset, we should drop this down and say no offset. Once you add your chain, you can always change it, but might as well just go ahead and get it right to start with here. So since we do want tool compensation, we're going to go ahead and select left. Then we'll pick our chain that encloses everything here and hit OK. And then we can just continue on and say discover etch levels. And then we get our few etch levels here. 1, 2, oops, I don't have the regions displayed here. So yep, so there's the outer shape and the inners, then the innermost of the letters that have islands. So now if you notice, we come over here to the chain that we selected, which is the rectangle, and just like we had selected in our chain window there, we have it on internal compensation. So this setting right here will propagate through all the etch levels, right? So if I come down here and I open up any of these chains that are in the etch levels, you'll see it's also left. You can go in and change these individually, but that's generally not done. So now the tool that we're using is a chamfer tool, which works well for engraving. It's kind of like an engraving tool. But one thing that's important to notice here is the diameter, which is the same as the major diameter generally. We don't want to compensate by that because that would not work. You just want to compensate by the minor radius. Okay, so it's important that this value is correct. If you have this, let's say you do have a minor diameter that's 10,000ths of an inch on your tool, but if you have this set to 1,000ths or 0 or something like that, then it's not going to work. It's not going to do the offsetting properly. So for chamfer tools, this is what it uses for the tool compensation, the minor diameter. Okay, so we go ahead and hit OK there, and then we can compile that. Okay, and that's done. And so now we can zoom in and we can see that you know, all of these levels here are tool compensating in the in direction. Okay. So for something like this, I don't think we would want to etch the outside, honestly. I think we'd want to do something like that to get the inside of the text here. So that's kind of what we want. You can see that it's offset on the inside. There, and that's easier to see in the R because there's no radiuses there. It's kind of all straight lines. So yep, so that's pretty much that. Let's go ahead and compare that real quick to doing this without compensation. Let's just select and make sure we drop down to no offset, and then click on our outer shape, and then again we can discover our etch levels. And let's just open up one of these chains here like we did before and just make sure it says no offset, right? So we can go ahead and compile that. And now when I zoom in, everything is on the center line, okay? Now the 3D chaining is going to be a little bit different because when you click on this, you generally do not want offset for engraving like this. So if you pick a 3D surface, it may detect the tool compensation side. In other words, this is only the default tool compensation if the software cannot automatically detect it. But when you're picking a 3D edge, it usually can detect it, so that means this is not going to be used. So in that case, it may automatically detect in or out compensation. So you really want to go over here and manually change this to no offset before you discover your etch levels if you're using a 3D model. And if you don't do that, you're going to get compensation, and you probably do not want that. Okay, so that should cover this.